Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming back to our AK the Analyst and SportsMiks podcast. It is your boy SportsMiks here. Unfortunately, AK couldn't be with us today as he was getting caught up with work. So I thought that I'd provide a bit of a podcast for you guys. As you guys can see on the screen, I have listed all of the different subjects that I'm going to be talking about in this podcast. It's going to be basically an NFL podcast with a bit of NBA talk in at the end on the Phoenix Suns. So I'm going to get into that. But from now, we're going to do Lamar Jackson and the Chiefs matchup. Then we're going to talk about the Niners and Seahawks a bit. And then finally, we're going to go into the Phoenix Suns. Trying not to make it as long as our podcasts usually are, just so you guys can sort of stay consistent and have time to watch the entire thing through, because I know many of you guys have a lot of work to do. So anyways, let's begin. This all started when I was actually in biology class, and me and my friend were both football fans, and he's actually a Kansas City Chiefs fan. He loves Mahomes, but the thing is, he's actually not a bandwagon, which is surprising to find a Chiefs fan that's not a bandwagon. And me and him were kind of just talking about the Chiefs. We always talk about football, and it was during biology. We didn't have much work to do, so we started kind of asking each other different questions and getting into this big debate on whether or not Mahomes will make it deep into the playoffs, or whether or not people think that the Kansas City Chiefs will have as big of an impact in the playoffs as many thought they did in the beginning of the year. Now, Mahomes just came back from an injury. Matt Moore coming in at for a substitution did not do terribly bad. As a Bills fan, I've definitely seen worse backup QBs, like a lot worse. Matt Moore was actually able to lead the offense really well. Tyreek Hill, obviously coming back in like week 7 or 8, has had a major impact on the Kansas City Chiefs, already above stats than guys like DeAndre Hopkins. Also, like guys like Odell, but obviously Odell is on the Browns, and the Browns probably say that for another podcast. But anyways, I actually do not believe, in my opinion, that the Chiefs are really what people may think they are. I think that Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens have proven that they can definitely come out on the AFC side of things, mainly because of the way that the Baltimore Ravens have formatted their offensive lineup. I was debating with my friend, and we were kind of both looking at the lineup for the Baltimore Ravens, and we looked deeply at how the offensive line is set up, because Lamar Jackson is such a great runner, and we have to kind of understand that if Lamar Jackson is able to produce 150 yard rushing game, which was obviously 2 weeks ago, but still, then the offensive line must be doing something that works. And that game I was actually looking at, when the Chiefs and Ravens played each other, the final score was 28-33. The Chiefs actually did come out on top. However, there was a point in the game where it was 23-6, and the Kansas City Chiefs did have a lead. But I think that the defense for the Kansas City Chiefs is so poor that it's really going to drag them down. I think that kind of having Lamar Jackson take over that game and bringing them within 5 points, it was obviously a late touchdown that Lamar Jackson was scored, but they did get a blocked field goal on the Kansas City Chiefs, and I also think that Lamar Jackson played really well and sort of showed a lot of poise and maturity when leading the Ravens on a potential comeback. And like I said before, the Kansas City Chiefs defense did not really live up to its expectations. However, they still did get the win. But looking at the division rivals for both teams coming into the playoffs, I'm trying to think of, like, in the future, the biggest division rival for the Ravens is the Steelers right now. And this is kind of surprising for me, because the Pittsburgh Steelers, right, they lost Antonio Brown, they lost Big Ben, and they lost Le'Veon Bell. They lost their three like dynamic trio that kind of formatted the entire offense, and they've also lost a couple of key players on the defensive side as well. But I think Mason Rudolph, Juju Smith-Schuster, and James Conner, this is obviously what was left of the core. As the Steelers were kind of coming up, and then the entire drama with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but I don't really want to get into that. Steelers have been doing well, and I think that I only said that they were actually a division rival for the Ravens because they are the closest record-wise to the Ravens. The Ravens are 7-3, and the Steelers are 5-4. As for the Chiefs stand at 6-4, and the Raiders are also 6-4. I'm sorry, the Raiders are 5-4. The Chiefs have not had their bye yet, and we're looking for that soon. I think it's like in the next week or maybe the week after that they'll have their bye. But the Raiders are actually surprising for losing Antonio Brown and having Josh Jacobs, a rookie, take over the backfield. And on top of that, losing Khalil Mack on defense, which is by far one of the worst decision making by the general manager and the entire staff of the Raiders that I've ever seen from an NFL organization. But the Raiders have definitely produced well. I think Derek Carr has proved he's a much better quarterback than what most people think, and also that Tyrell Williams and Darren Waller, they were able to get into the mix and sort of produce numbers that not many people thought they would be able to accomplish. So, great job for the Raiders. I do not expect them to go far into the playoffs at all. Even if they do make the playoffs, it'll definitely be a wild card spot, and they're probably out. This is kind of a rebuilding season for the Raiders. I'm sure they did not expect to do this well either. Obviously, no team is going to come out and be like, yeah, we're not going to do well at all. That would just look bad for their organization. But in their minds, they kind of thought of this year as a rebuilding year with losing Antonio Brown. They had high hopes, but obviously the drama with Antonio Brown screwed up their entire offensive personnel and game plan. So they were kind of just thrown into this season, but ended up producing better numbers. Derek Carr was obviously prepared to do some really amazing things with Antonio Brown that he's kind of transferred from Antonio Brown into guys like Tyrell Williams, maybe Josh Jacobs, and Darren Waller. So great job for the Raiders on that. I honestly don't think the Chiefs and the Ravens have anything to really look out for when it comes to their division rivals. Chiefs, other teams in their division include the Chargers and Broncos, who we do not really need to go into talking about. But anyways, if you guys take a look on the screen and you guys see the Ravens offensive line, obviously this is a play when Lamar Jackson was able to get the ball and run for a really large amount. I like to think of it that the offensive line for the Ravens is kind of shaped in a U, where there are two big guys on the sides, guys who are big, who are tough, who are strong, but also have a quick feet, and then there's a center in the middle for like a backup support. But the two guys on the side, two on the left side, two on the right side, so that equals four, because there's five guys lined up at the line. They were able to create, and then obviously it could also be four guys at the offensive line as well, but they were able to create a U form to allow Lamar Jackson obviously to have time run through his progressions on the field. And then we all know how fast Lamar Jackson is and how much he's capable of running the ball, of tucking it, running it, and just bursting. So what the Ravens offensive line has kind of had to adjust to now, having a running quarterback. Obviously Joe Flacco wasn't that big of a running quarterback, but with Lamar Jackson, you'll see the Ravens offensive line kind of forming into this U shape to where they can give Lamar Jackson the middle to run in, because if you look at many of Lamar Jackson's runs, he is not a scramble. He's not a Mahomes, as I should say. Mahomes will scramble, and if he's going to run, he's going to run on the outside. But Lamar Jackson doesn't seem to be like that. He'll make his quick decisions on whether or not he wants to throw it. He won't even wait until a guy's open, and he will run because he has that much confidence in himself. The only other guy that I've seen have that much confidence in himself is Josh Allen with running, at least definitely with running. However, despite Lamar Jackson running, his accuracy rate is not that bad at all. He is 65.2% on completion rate this season. And for Mahomes, I think you also have to compare Mahomes to Jackson, but in the sense of what their offense looks like. Patrick Mahomes has receiver Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Obviously, Michael Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, all of these guys are very skilled, wide receivers. Lamar Jackson has Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. And that's really much it. Mark Ingram is definitely a big part of the offense as well. He's kind of, again, I know I say this for a lot of running backs, but this is how the game is kind of shaping out today. he's kind of like an Austin Eckler. He can throw the ball to Mark Ingram, and he can also run the ball. So Mark Ingram is that type of guy. I know recently he had a game where he had 3 touchdowns, and he ran the ball a lot. But there's also, if you look on the receiving end for the Ravens, you'll see that they don't have many wide receivers, skilled wide receivers, I should say, who Lamar Jackson seems very comfortable throwing to. It's Marquise Brown, who honestly has been getting quieter and quieter as the season progresses, and obviously Mark Andrews, who everybody thought was going to be a sleeper, and he turned it out to be one of the best tight ends in the game today. So for Lamar Jackson to only have Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, and Mark Ingram is incredible, because Mahomes has all these guys. He has Damian Williams, Darrell Williams, LaShawn McCoy. All these guys are very experienced and skilled. And then Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. So Mahomes is a great quarterback as is. I'm not saying that he isn't. But this talent that Mahomes is given definitely doesn't lack. Whereas it lacks a little bit more for Lamar Jackson, which is why he kind of has to pull a Russell Westbrook and take over the offense himself. Again, why he runs a lot. It's because there's not many wide receivers or even people as is to pass to, so he kind of has to, again, play a Russell Westbrook, play a James Harden, and run the ball himself to get his team up the field. Anyways, my predictions kind of for this entire matchup between Lamar Jackson and the Chiefs, I feel like these two will definitely meet in the AFC Championship. Not definitely, obviously not definitely, it's not guaranteed, but it is very likely that they will meet in the AFC Championship, kind of battle it out. And I think that if Lamar Jackson can kind of get his, first of all, run game, not his own run game, his run game is perfect, but like Mark Ingram definitely get into the mix. He has been in the mix, don't get me wrong, but this offense definitely needs more help from guys like Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews, who have both been producing solid numbers. Definitely Mark Andrews is one to mention, but coming up against people like the Chiefs, you really have you'll score a lot. Okay, I think that the Ravens are decently fine with their scoring because the Chiefs defense is not that good. They're ranked like 22nd as of right now. Definitely not something I would bet my money on for the Chiefs defense. Definitely not even starting in a fantasy lineup as well. So for Lamar Jackson and the Chiefs, I think that they both go to the AFC Championship. And they both meet. My prediction, if that does happen, is that I think Lamar Jackson's will be able to sort of talk to his defense, and they will be able to stop Mahomes. I know that Mahomes is a great quarterback, but the Ravens have a pretty tight offense and a pretty nice defense as well. I think people definitely do sleep on the Baltimore Raven defense. If the Baltimore Raven defense is able to stop Mahomes or at least try to contain him, Lamar Jackson will be able to go up against the weak Kansas City defense. So that is my prediction. Now, as we move on to the second topic of our NFL podcast, this is the 49ers and Seahawks game, and I really wanted to talk about this because I know that a lot of people, me as a Niners fan, have been giving me a lot of talk for the Niners. You know, they were about to go 9-0. They were so close, probably they were a field goal away from becoming 9-0, but that obviously didn't happen due to how experienced Russell Wilson is and how much poise and maturity he shows when going up against insane defenses. And by the way, when I say insane defenses, take insane and multiply that by like a million, because the Niners defense, I know I sound like a little kid with that analogy, but the Niners defense is absolutely insane. I didn't understand really how amazing the Niners defense is and how capable Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead and Solomon Thomas and not Ed Oliver, that's the Bills. But anyways, this entire defensive line is of getting to Russell Wilson and performing very well. Fun fact that you guys should know, the Niners defense is loaded with 5 first-round picks. That's how long they tanked for. 5 years, 5 defensive backs, all first round. So the Niners definitely they're the best defense in the NFL. I don't think there's a question about that. Patriots, okay, maybe. They're still undefeated, fine. But actually, no, the Patriots aren't undefeated. What am I saying? But Patriots defense is also very good, but let me just read you guys this quick Instagram post that I kind of knew all this information, but just piecing it together gave me the impression that wow, the Niners actually were able to do all of this, compete against the Seattle Seahawks, one of the best teams in the NFL right now, with a great defense and a great offense. Obviously, Russell Wilson in the MVP campaign, but the 49ers did not have George Kittle. I mean, that's all I really need to say. They didn't even have George Kittle, which is insane that they were still able to compete against the Seahawks. Obviously, the Niners' offense wasn't as great as it is kind of used to being with George Kittle in the mix. Jimmy Garoppolo definitely choked, as I should say, or he was nervous under pressure when it came to overtime. Russell Wilson, I feel like he's always in this kind of game-winning drive situation. I was looking at the stat. He has like 20-something game-winning drives in his entire career. So he definitely will come into this game, and if a game-winning drive with all the pressure is thrown at him, he will embrace it with all of his maturity and poise, and he will be able to perform smartly, which he did, actually. There was this one big run right before the Niners intercepted the ball from Russell Wilson in overtime where all the guys were downfield. It was a 3rd and 16, and Russell Wilson took the ball and ran because he saw that the Niners coverage was backing off because Russell Wilson definitely has an arm. His accuracy rate is really good, so he's a double threat, kind of like Lamar Jackson and kind of like Mahomes, which is why he's put into the MVP campaign. So the Niners defense, they weren't really prepared for both. I could say that the offensive line definitely that play did its job with backing up all of those first-round picks like Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, and Eric Armstead. But let me continue with this post. There was no Emmanuel Sanders, so Jimmy Garoppolo did not have many wide receivers to throw to, especially talent. No Matt Breida, and their run game, me and my dad were talking about this, was completely out of sync. Tevin Coleman didn't really get the ball, and Jadeveon Clowney and the Seahawks defense were able to stop him up short whenever it came time for the run game to perform. As for the defense, there is no Ahkello Witherspoon, who is a great cornerback for the 49ers, if you guys don't know. And finally, probably the most important, but probably Kittle's still most important, is no Robbie Gould. Yes, that is right. We were able to bring this game into overtime on a 40-yard field goal, 40-plus yard field goal, with a rookie kicker that we picked up from the streets like a week before the game. Chase McLaughlin. I'm pretty sure none of you guys have ever heard who that is. I actually haven't. I'm being honest. He's a rookie kicker that we just picked up. His last games was like week 7 or 8 with the Chargers. I think he played a backup for the Chargers kicker who was injured that game. But dang, like good for the rookie at first. He definitely came up clutch and helped the Niners move into overtime to compete against the Seahawks. But okay, as you guys probably saw, the second kick that he took in overtime was definitely off balance. His footing, his fundamentals slipped his mind, and the ball went incredibly flat. So I think if we had a 15-year veteran who I'm sure has played in many overtimes and is used to the pressure, the game would have turned out a little bit differently. And again, we played against the Seahawks kicker was a Pro Bowler, 5-time Pro Bowler. So when it comes to that situation, you're really not going to win the kicking game unless, you know what, there was a chance, but it wasn't a great chance. So he's an undrafted rookie kicker. And not only that, we can't blame this entirely on Jimmy Garoppolo. There were a lot of wide receivers who dropped passes, which leads me back to Emmanuel Sanders not being there. It wasn't entirely Jimmy Garoppolo's fault. And we only got beat by Seattle by 3 in the last second of overtime. It wasn't even like it was 6 minutes into overtime. It was within the last final seconds. So the defense definitely played as best as they could with that last interception by Greenlaw, and I forgot to mention, no Quan Alexander. That's right, no Quan Alexander. And Greenlaw was the backup for Quan Alexander, who was actually able to get into who's actually able to snag a pick for the 49ers. So therefore, I think that we did not have a lot of people, and the Seahawks had probably everybody that they desired to have in that situation. So except Tyler Lockett in the end, but Tyler Lockett played for a good amount of the game. Anyways, to conclude about the 49ers and Seahawks, as for the Seahawks, you know what? They come as a very big threat. The MVP campaign for Russell Wilson improves incredibly. He's a very smart quarterback and knows how to find his wide receivers when needed. And looking at the schedule for the last part of the 49ers, they play some pretty tough teams: Packers, Saints, Ravens, Rams, and Seahawks. And they also play the Cardinals. But there aren't many games left in the season, and these games will not be easy for the 49ers. I think their defense will definitely have to kind of carry the load again leading into the playoffs. The Niners will definitely make the playoffs. They're in a position to do so. But my prediction is that the 49ers and the Seahawks will meet in the NFC Championship, and it's a blood battle from there. I think that we'll have to see if Jimmy Garoppolo kind of learns against these tough teams to gain his composure and execute smartly off of the pressure and the blitz against tough defenses like the Ravens, like the Saints, and like the Seahawks deliver. As for the Packers, just quickly wanted to say I do not think the Packers are a team that they're kind of like the Niners in a sense. Don't really match what their record says, except the Niners match more what their record says than the Packers. Obviously, Packers defense is not as great as the 49ers defense. So we'll have to see against the Packers, but obviously Aaron Rodgers, you're going to need to step up. The Niners defense is going to need to step up against an Aaron Rodgers and an Aaron Jones, who's basically the entire team right now. Aaron Jones is the entire team. So if Aaron Jones does go down, it's over for the Packers. And I'm just saying that right now. I'm not even going to lie about anything else. Aaron Jones is the entire team of the Packers. Okay, so enough of NFL. I just want to quickly touch on the NBA because I don't want to go too much NFL. We're going to take a look at the Phoenix Suns because I actually watch a YouTuber at Brawadis who is a huge Phoenix Suns fan, and he's kind of turned me into like a follower of the Phoenix Suns. I like to not really watch games, but I like to kind of look at their record and see how they're progressing, especially this season because the Phoenix Suns have come out into a surprise for the first 10 games. They are a 6-4 record. That's not what they're used to. They won 19 games last season, okay? They're already almost halfway there from their wins, and it's only been 10 games out of 82. So I think that, and I should also quickly mention that the 4 games that they lost were against top 4 teams in each conference. I think that includes the Lakers, the Nuggets, and the Heat, and I'm forgetting which other team they lost to, but top 4 teams from each conference. The Suns sit at 7th in the Western Conference right now, and those games that they lost were only 3 of them. They only lost by 8 or less. 2 of those actually went into overtime. So pretty good standards for the Phoenix Suns, especially with the loss of DeAndre Ayton. I think Devin Booker has proved his dominance and how heavy he can carry a team. I think before in different seasons we didn't really see that from D-Book, but now it's definitely becoming apparent for the entire NBA and all of its fans. He averages 25.3 points per game, 5.8 assists, and above 50% from the three-point line. And with the help of Ricky Rubio and Kelly Oubre, who aren't big-name stars, but they do provide a very pivotal role for the Phoenix Suns, I think the Suns are playing together as a unit, as a team without DeAndre Ayton, who was obviously suspended a good amount ago for 25 games because of violating the NBA drug policy. He should be back soon, hopefully. And when he does come back, I think this Phoenix Suns team will definitely look to, I don't think improve, but definitely maintain what they have been accomplishing so far. Maybe improve. I don't think DeAndre Ayton serves as that big of a role as Devin Booker does, obviously, and probably not enough to kind of improve what the Phoenix Suns have been doing because they've been playing pretty damn amazing. So DeAndre Ayton will definitely help the Suns. I think the Suns right now don't have as big of a bodies as they really wish. DeAndre Ayton was a very skilled rookie. He did have some great blocks, some great dunks as well. My prediction just for the Phoenix Suns is that they move into the 6th or maybe stay at the 7th spot in the Western Conference. They lead into the playoffs, but obviously it's 10 games out of 82. It is very early to tell whether or not this will happen. Teams go through slumps and streaks all the time. The Warriors are very well known of going through a major slump when they were good. Now I know the slump has kind of taken its toll already and probably is going to be extended. Warrior season's over for the most part. But The Phoenix Suns are definitely going through a streak right now. Who knows? They may be coming towards a slump when DeAndre Ayton returns. Their system might be messed up, but right now what's working for them is Devin Booker is basically playing like a Russell Westbrook. However, Russell Westbrook didn't really use his other threats as well as Devin Booker has. Ricky Rubio and Mikal Bridges and Kelly Oubre, they're all three scorers, and that's definitely helped D-Book. 25 points per game is obviously great for the Phoenix Suns. Just thinking of, they were 19 and like 60 something last season, so already coming out to 6 wins in the season. Devin Booker improving on his stats, looking really good for the Suns. So Suns fans definitely have some nice hopes. Don't make your hopes too high. It's only 10 games, like I said before, but I definitely see the Suns sort of maintaining what they have been throughout the season so far into the playoffs. So anyways, guys, that is going to wrap it up quick. I know it's a quick podcast, but thank you all so much for listening to SportsMiks' podcast. Again, to recap, we touched up on Lamar Jackson and the Chiefs and definitely went heavy on the 49ers and Seahawks game that just happened. And obviously, like I just said right now, the Phoenix Suns. So, again, big thanks to everyone out there watching this podcast. I hope it was definitely a little bit shorter. I hope you guys all watched through. And this podcast will definitely be out soon. It should be updated. And I will trying to be uploading more podcasts, whether it's with AK or not. I know he's a very busy man, so if it's not with AK, I will definitely be providing you guys with my analysis on these different topics as we progress through the NFL and NBA seasons. NFL season is coming to a bit of an end. I know, very sad for me. It's already week 10 just finished, so it's week 11 already. Only a couple more weeks to go, but definitely that means just a lot more podcasts coming out as teams kind of ramp up for the playoffs. And then as for the NBA, it's early season, but that doesn't mean there's going to be less talk about that because teams are coming in. We're looking at how the duos work: Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, guess D'Angelo Russell and Draymond Green at this point. So definitely more to coming you guys on that. Final thanks from me, and this is SportsMiks, and I'm signing out.